All right, let's get into it. You see the flashing lights, you hear the sirens, but have you ever stopped to think about what it really takes to run a police department these days? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain because, trust me, the job is way more complex than you might imagine.
So let me ask you something. When you picture a police chief, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Someone out on the street, making dramatic arrests, maybe kicking down a door or two? Well, the day-to-day reality is often pretty different, and it might just surprise you.
You know, on one hand, we have the Hollywood version. It's all action all the time. But the reality? That's a world of spreadsheets, budget battles, endless community meetings, and just constant risk management. It's really less about being an action hero and a lot more about being the CEO of a very, very high-stakes organization.
And that's a perfect lead-in to our first major challenge, the leadership test. I mean, what does it actually take to lead a modern police force from the very top?
So how do we even begin to define what good leadership looks like in this world? Well, luckily, we don't have to guess. There's an organization called the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the IACP, and they've basically created the blueprint for what works.
And this blueprint, it shows that leadership isn't just about giving orders. It's about having a real, long-term strategic vision. It's about getting out there and actually engaging with the community to build trust. Of course, it's about holding everyone to the absolute highest ethical standards. And this last one is critical: officer wellness. We're talking about acknowledging the incredible stress of the job, because a healthy, supported police force, that's a more effective one, plain and simple.
You know, this whole idea was captured perfectly by the legendary management thinker Peter Drucker. He said, "It's not about being popular or giving great speeches. Leadership is all about results. And for a police chief, those results are pretty clear: keeping the public safe, building trust, and running a department that everyone can count on." Okay, so a chief has the big vision. That's great. But how do they make sure every single officer, on every shift, is acting on that vision in a way that's consistent and fair? Well, that brings us to our next challenge, the rulebook dilemma.
The answer is all about something called sound policy. Now, don't let the name fool you. This is a huge deal. Think of policy as the department's DNA. It's got to be written clearly so there's no confusion, it has to be legally solid so it holds up under scrutiny, and, maybe most importantly, it has to be practical enough for an officer to actually use in a split-second, high-pressure situation on the street.
So why does all this paperwork matter so much? Because it is the absolute backbone of good policing. Good policy makes sure that every single person is treated fairly under the exact same set of rules. It protects the department from lawsuits, and it gives officers the clear guidance they need to do their jobs safely. It's a win-win-win.
And here's the thing. Policy isn't some document you write once and then shove in a drawer to collect dust. No way. It's a living thing. It's this continuous cycle. A policy gets developed, officers are trained on it, and then it's put into action in the real world. And from there, it's constantly being reviewed and updated based on new laws, new tech, or community feedback, which starts the whole process all over again.
All right, let's talk about a challenge that, honestly, wasn't even on the radar a generation ago: the digital minefield. How on earth does a police chief manage a department in the age of social media? And the stakes here are just unbelievably high. Think about it. Just one bad post from an officer, on or off duty, doesn't matter, can ignite a total firestorm. It can destroy years of trust and even compromise officers' safety in an instant. And the risks are everywhere. You're talking about damaging that hard-earned community trust. You could accidentally leak info that blows up an active investigation. It can lead to very real, very scary threats against officers. And, of course, it can absolutely tank the reputation of the entire department overnight. So what's the solution? How do you navigate this minefield? Well, it all comes back to that same core idea we've been talking about: policy. The single best defense is a strong, clear, and legally sound social media policy that every single person in the department knows inside and out. So that brings us to our final section, where we get to see how all these pieces, the leadership, the policy, the modern challenges, all have to come together. It's a true balancing act. After seeing all this, the meetings, the policy writing, the risk management, all of it, you might be wondering, what's the point? What is the ultimate goal of all this behind-the-scenes work?
It all boils down to this. The whole point is to build a department that is, 1, effective at keeping people safe, 2, reputable in how it acts, and 3, ultimately trusted by the very community it serves. That is the real work of a modern police chief, and it's a foundation that's built far, far away from any Hollywood car chase.